I have, formal diagnoses of ADHD and then anxiety and depression and things like that. So that has been interesting. Like looking back at it, just like, oh, that's why I may have struggled with those things in the past.
Welcome everyone to another wonderful and beautiful day with Kathleen Smith. I'm looking forward to this one. We had a brief introduction. We just spoke briefly. And as always, I do not have a clue who I'm really speaking to, but she is another nice lady. I do know that. And Kathleen, she's got this beautiful smile. And when people have got beautiful smile, it's sunshine. So we're all happy here today. She is neurodivergent herself, so we'll speak about that. And also we'll speak about her business. But enough of me chatting. Kathleen is going to speak about what she's doing now, and then we'll go with the flow, and you never know what's going to happen. So, Kathleen, thank you for joining us today, and welcome.
Yeah, thank you so much for inviting me. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. Okay, so introduce what you're trying to do for people. You know, you've got your own business, so let's start with that, and then we'll go with that.
Sure. So my name is Kathleen Smith. I am the founder of Walton Birch, which is a web development and digital marketing company based near Atlanta, Georgia, in the United States. I've been a full-time entrepreneur for 5 years. Actually, in August 1st was 5 years. Prior to that, I did like kind of the tour of the Fortune 500 companies here in Atlanta, Georgia. So I've done a little bit of everything.
Wow, okay. Let's talk about that Fortune 500 situation there. Come on, I'm a bit curious now. You've let the cat out of the bag. What, did you really think you was going to leave it there? Come on.
No, I think I have. I'm learning that my story is more common, but I, wanted to have a good life basically, and my parents are both baby boomers who came from very large families, and so they kind of struggled coming up, and they wanted the best for their kids, and so the message that they kind of drilled into us was go to school, get a good job, work forever, retire. And so that was the plan. So I feel it's kind of like compulsory corporate life. I gave it a shot. When I left college, my first job out of college was at a very small marketing company based in Norcross, Georgia, which is north of Atlanta. But I went immediately after that, I went into a very large corporation and spent some time there. It didn't really work out for me though. So here I am, full-time entrepreneur now. So.
Okay. So what did you do in that corporation? What exactly did you do?
Sure. So I actually worked at several of the Fortune 500 companies based in Atlanta, largely in marketing and communications. So I worked with AT&T and their headquarters is in Dallas. It's not in Atlanta, but they had a very sizable presence in Atlanta. And so I actually had a couple of jobs within AT&T between 2009 and 2016. Yeah. So I was there for a while. But yeah, mainly in marketing. My very first job with AT&T was with the Yellow Pages. So the Yellow Pages is literally like a directory book, like a huge book of Yellow Pages that was printed, for a while. And so I joined the Yellow Pages when they were transitioning from the printed book into online offerings. So my very first web development job and my very first job at AT&T was a web design intern with the Yellow Pages when we were building just hundreds of websites for small businesses. So we were taking those little business entries that were printed on the Yellow Pages and transferring them to websites for small business. So I probably built like 20, 30 websites a day at some point. This is when desktop websites were separate from mobile websites. So we had to build the desktop website and we had to build the mobile website. So there's
so we talking 20 to 30 twice. Are we talking 20 to 30 twice over?
So it would have been either a desktop and a website, or there were days where I only did websites or mobile websites. And mobile websites at the time were just kind of like CSS altered versions of desktop websites.
That's right.
So it's just kind of like shrinking a big website down. So it's not building it from scratch. It's really kind of reconfiguring it. That's why they were up to there were probably 3 to 5 full-size websites, and I could knock out like 20 or 30 of the mobile websites in a day just based on CSS. So
So tell me about it. So were you dreaming websites when you were going through this whole situation? Because I feel you. I started off dealing with websites way back in the days in the late 90s. So I started off with HTML. Do you remember HTML? Yeah, I'm that old, people. HTML.
Yes, that's how we were building the websites. There wasn't a really good website builder at that point, so these were largely hand coded. They were very similar, so the coding was very similar. Like the foundational structures were similar, but it was coding in HTML and CSS. Yeah.
Okay, well, I'm surprised you didn't use Dreamweaver from Adobe at the time. There was Dreamweaver.
We did have Dreamweaver. It just, for what I was doing, like especially reconfiguring the mobile websites, it didn't necessarily require kind of the full programming. Like I knew at several points in the code where to change, the rounded corners on buttons and padding and colors and things like that. So I didn't necessarily need the full heft of that, but it was available. So.
Yeah, listeners, so you know that you're not technical. Dreamweaver was like equivalent of WordPress or Word document. If you're messing about with, it was our version of it. Was really, really good at the time. I mean, it's not needed right now, but it was the bomb. It really got us out of coding left, right, and center. But we diverse and we move on. So as you can see, Kathleen, I can see that you went through the trenches, basically, dreaming websites, sweating websites. So not only were you building websites, I take it obviously you started following on with marketing from dealing with websites.
Yes, actually. My career marketing started just a little bit prior to my career in web design. My first job out of college, the one in Norcross, was I think I started in customer service, but they hired another recent grad for marketing around the same time, but he didn't work out, and so they said, "Hey, like you're young, you know how to computer, like you can do marketing." This was when like small businesses were kind of transitioning from traditional marketing to digital marketing. And so they were like, "Oh, you're young, you computer, like, you know what Facebook is, here, do the marketing." So that was my very first job in marketing. And I kind of parlayed that into additional marketing experience throughout my career. But yeah, marketing started a little bit before web development. And so by the time I became a web designer with the Yellow Pages, I knew that that's not really what I wanted to be. It felt like being in the trenches, to use the way that you described it, just doing the same thing over and over and over and over again and on a deadline. So
you've recently found out that you're neurodivergent. And if you are, in what way?
Yeah, so the way that I found out that I was neurodivergent was by learning the different ways that neurodivergence shows up in people. I have a twin brother, and he was diagnosed with ADHD when we were probably 11 or 12. And so he started receiving treatment for ADHD when we were 11 or 12. And at that time, I started seeing a therapist because I had what they thought were just garden variety mental health issues. So I've been probably being treated for things that are related to being neurodivergent, but not necessarily formally diagnosed as neurodivergent. And so what they said was, "Oh, she has depression, she has anxiety, like we're trying to teach her coping skills. We're teaching her how to cope or addressing those particular issues." It's only recently that I've learned that some of the struggles that I've had with things like executive function may also be an ADHD diagnosis like my brother, just kind of manifested differently. So I don't have like a formal autism diagnosis. I have, formal diagnoses of ADHD and then anxiety and depression and things like that. So that has been interesting. Like looking back at it, just like, oh, that's why I may have struggled with those things in the past. But also having been able to, learn effective kind of coping skills, because without that diagnosis, I think the way that I was treated for having some of the same challenges as my brother was different. So it's been interesting.
Okay, so now you know that you have this issue, all right? You can now look back and go, aha, okay, that's why this, that, and the other. Go right back as far as you can with hindsight, now you have hindsight. Now, when did you really have accumulating issues? When did it really start? Did it start off when you was literally from toddling or teenager, or what? Where are we going back? How far are we going back?
I would say probably teenager, around the time my brother was diagnosed. So we were both struggling at that point, but we were struggling with different things. My brother was struggling in school with grades. And so they were saying, oh, he may have like some sort of learning disability. I was also struggling, but I was not struggling with grades. I was a straight A student, but my room was a mess. Like, teenagers' rooms are messy, but I think that this exceeded the threshold for what could reasonably like, be considered messy for a teenager. So just the inability to keep things remotely in a system of order. My parents are very organized. My dad is a veteran. He literally taught us how to tuck our bed corners like the way that they tuck their bunks, but somehow it never stuck. So just a constant battle with my parents around my physical space and the messiness or the organization or lack thereof of that space was just, I just remember the angst around that and just not feeling like, you know, we were just different people from our parents. Like they were very neat, very tidy. We devoted a lot of our time in childhood to cleaning up the house, and it just never, quote unquote, stuck, if that makes sense. And that created a lot of tension.
Okay, so I understand when it comes to your room, but did that evolve into your educational state, being organized when it came to that, being organized beyond the room?
Yeah, just a habitual procrastinator. Like I got by because I always got good grades, but just, you know, if you give me a deadline, the day before the deadline is when the thing is just going to get done. So not being able to kind of pace out schoolwork like my peers, to put together, especially research projects. I remember when we were learning about research projects, they were, you know, maybe a 6 or 8 week kind of path to, oh, we're going to research this topic. We're going to write paragraph 1. We're going to write an intro. And here it is the day before the project is due. And I haven't done any of that. So just following a schedule with a normal sense of urgency instead of waiting until the last minute to do just about anything was constantly a struggle all the way through high school and through college. And honestly, reading, just sitting down and just reading a text for understanding, you know, or to write an essay was always a challenge. And so the difference between high school and college for me was very large. Like I was a straight A student all the way through high school. And then when in college, that really just kind of fell apart. I didn't have structure when it came to like following a syllabus. I didn't have structure when it came to self-guided projects. So things that I had to set due dates on and deliverables, even keeping up with like worksheets and things that I had to turn in was just awful. And it was really shocking to have gone from being such a quote unquote good, even a gifted student in high school to being just average or below average in college based on some of those kind of same criteria. It was a interesting moment.
Okay, so with that said, that's amazing how you was a straight A student doing things at the last moment. How were you able to perform at the last moment? Because I shouldn't say usually, because neurodivergent people are very, very different in its extremity. Some people have problems with their memory. You obviously had a gifted memory to be able to perform so fast in such a short time. So you didn't have that problem, because if you did, there's no way you could do things at the last moment and still be a straight A student. Is that correct?
Right. And I think I learned differently. So if something relied on sitting down and reading, so if the task were to sit down, read these 40 pages of text and write a 5-page essay based on these 40 pages of text, I'm not going to do very well at that task. I mean, I can get by, I have excellent reading comprehension. I call it the last minute drive. Like there's no tired when something is due in 24 hours. There's no such thing as tired. So being able to complete things kind of like good enough worked for a while. And then also just being able to learn things in a way that kind of made sense for me. By the time I went to college, the internet was a thing. So being able to find some kind of information in non-textbook form really helped, because if I can take it in a different way and absorb it in a different way, then I can kind of spit it back out more effectively. So that was very helpful. I think if I had gone to college probably 4 or 5 years earlier, I wouldn't have finished college.
Mm-hmm. And did you find that as you got older, obviously you, with your high pushing job, because you had to knock out to 30 websites, right? You permanently had to come up with the goods instantly. So you're always on a permanent drive to have to finish yourself. So
there were deadlines.
It was a perfect job for you, because as much as it was stressful,
now that I think about it,
for you and your skill set, it's the only thing, or it's one of those jobs that kept you going.
That's the first time I've thought about it that way. Yeah, that is the first time I have considered it that way. That is eye-opening.
Yeah, totally. It was the perfect job for you, as much as it was. No, exactly. It was a pain in the ass, but the thing is, it was repetition, and also you had to come up with something in the next 30 minutes, then the next 30 minutes, and you had no choice. But you work best when you're under pressure.
Yeah.
That's how you have to work.
Yep.
But having the time to lay back and take it easy, it just ain't getting done.
Exactly. That's so interesting. I had never even thought about that.
Yeah, so that's because I work very similar. I've got this, I shouldn't say huge amount of time, but if I've got a certain amount of time, I procrastinate myself. But if I'm under pressure, I get it done. So I understand where you're coming from. And not until you've got a bomb up your ass do you then move, so to speak. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
So I totally get you. What other issues did you have, growing up? So you had the issue where, chaos from the point of view, not very organized, be it your bedroom, be it structuring certain things, education in your life, but you got through that. But what other things did you notice that was an issue that was part of what you was having?
Yeah, this is where, looking back, it's hard to differentiate between what I thought was like a regular mental health diagnosis to that ADHD diagnosis. Like, my parents would have said that I was a very shy child. I like to kind of be off by myself, and I would have a meltdown if there was just too much going on. And in retrospect, I recognize those as kind of sensory issues, but because they weren't kind of attributed to that at the time, in retrospect, it's difficult to think about. So like, now that I think about it, like Catherine having a meltdown after the family Christmas party makes sense. It makes a lot of sense. Like, at the time, it wasn't like, oh, okay, she gets overloaded with lots of noise. It's just like, Catherine's sensitive. She can't do this. The peopling is like, she's very shy. She, even around people that she knows, she likes to sit off by herself at times. She can't do the peopling thing for long. And so in retrospect, I recognize all of those as things that may be associated like with neurodivergence. But at the time, I don't think anybody was thinking that.
Yeah, no, of course. No, without that. No, I totally understand you, and I feel you at the same time. So when it came to your brother, did you have empathy with your brother at the time? Because obviously at the time, officially, you had different problems, different issues, right? Yeah. So what was the relationship knowing your brother was going through? So we're going to look at it from a different point of view, because your brother has ADHD, right?
Yeah, and he's just a different person. We're similar, but he's a very different person. Yeah.
Yeah. So how did you both cope with each other? Being siblings, ADHD. Do you think he was putting it on? Did you think he was? What was the situation? Because it would be interesting to see it from a different point of view as you were twins. So this would make for interesting conversation.
I know. I kind of wish, like we could both be here, because now, like, I wish I could say to him, like, I didn't understand what you were going through. I'm sorry. I thought you were weird. He was just so different. Like he was even more like they called it introverted, but kind of inside himself. And he is gifted, but like artistically. So he was a gifted illustrator and drawer, and he was gifted musically. And so they kind of treated him like, like a savant, but he had very little social skills. Like he just didn't really he didn't people at all. And so, sometimes when neurodivergence is really kind of outward facing like that, they're just like, oh, he's really talented. They're just kind of like, let him sit off in a corner, not talking to anyone, but I definitely, I thought he was weird. And because we're twins, we were constantly being compared. And I don't think that helped either one of us at all. I don't think it helped us to develop a relationship with each other, to a place where we could be support networks for each other, because we were always in school together at the same time. I don't think that it kind of put us against each other as well, because they would say, well, why can't you study hard and get good grades like your sister, when I'm struggling too. I'm struggling in the same way that he is struggling. In school, it's just, it manifests itself differently, and I'm somehow able to overcome the same challenges. So in retrospect, just thinking about, my brother being a twin and being compared to another person is always hard. So like if you have twins, regardless of whether both of them are neurodivergent, like don't compare them, like try not to compare them. And I think that there was just a lack of understanding and empathy on both of our parts. So there's no way he could have known what I was going through. There's no way I could have known what he was going through to be able to say, oh, we have these things in common. And like I said, it was just recently when he stayed with me for a while, that I realized that we're more similar than I've ever even considered. It's eye-opening to see that now. And I think, we have to do some work even now to repair our relationship, because we've kind of grown apart, like just not understanding each other.
So it was a difficult time for both of you, because one got the support and the understanding because they had the test, and so they were accepted to have ADHD, and then things were put into place, while you didn't. You were from the other extreme. So understanding that, you're very dedicated to your work, very strong woman, and all that other things. You can obviously, listeners, you can hear from how she's speaking. She's very, very strong lady. She knows what she wants. She knows what she's going to do, etc., etc. There's a reason why I'm saying this now. You never got that support. You never got the ADHD support and whatever else. If you did, would that have changed you significant as a person, and would you be better off for it or not?
Oh, that's a deep question.
It is.
That is a deep question.
What did you expect? Don't come on my show if you don't think deep. Otherwise,
can I process out loud for a moment?
Yeah, go on. Loud it out.
So out loud. So on the one hand, I fully believe that the person that I am today is a function of the experiences that I had. Like, I don't think that I would be the person that I am today had I not been through what I've been through, had the experiences that I've had. I think that that is true. I think that if I had gotten a diagnosis at the same time as my brother, there may have been kind of more support systems in place, but it's really interesting to think about what that might look like. I think I absolutely would have gotten better grades in college.
Better than a straight A? Oh my God.
I absolutely would have gotten better grades in college. And who knows what would have happened if my grades had been better. I barely graduated from college the first time. And so I think, when you do when you get good grades in college, your career opportunities immediately after graduating are a little bit better. So I could have potentially, my career could have gotten off to a better start, had maybe potentially a little bit more momentum. I might have gone to grad school right away. Also, I didn't go to grad school for 7 years until after I graduated from undergrad. So I probably would have done that undergrad, grad transition immediately, but might not have made the same decision. So part of the reason why I went back to grad school to get an MBA was because I felt like there was like a ceiling on my career. I was like, oh, I don't want to do web development forever. I got to get out of here. It's time to go back to school. So whereas if I had gone back, or if I had gone to grad school immediately from undergrad, I probably would have done something either in law or actually it would have been law. I'm sure it would have.
Yeah, no, 'cause I can imagine. Because the thing is, if you had the support system and it was just like you explained to me, your brother, oh, that's okay, he's a genius, right? Because he officially was A, B, and C.
Yeah.
You could have been in the same situation,
right.
and you would have been seen as the genius and pushed also. And it's not to say, I'm not blaming your parents or anyone, for whatever. But it's very interesting to see, especially the reason why I wanted to speak to you from that point of view is because you had twins. You're a twin, right? And you had similar issues and different issues, but you had issues nevertheless. So that's why I found it very interesting. Okay, what could have happened if this and that had happened? So this is why I was speaking to you about it. And it's just, and you just never know until you live that path. We can surmise, right? We can guess. So as much as you said what you said, really, if you lived the other path, it could have been something completely different. But I'm just interested. I always like asking the interesting questions. So
that's
the way it goes. Yeah, it was interesting, wasn't it? So now with your brother, with the relationship you have with the both of you, has that changed now? You know that you have certain issues. You've always known it. As the relationship changed between you both, have you had that conversation to say, oh, I understand, sis, why you were weird, or whatever the case may be? Have you had that conversation now? What's happened based on what's being confirmed with you? What changes? What acceptance within family, friends, whatever? What has happened?
Yeah. So that's another deep question. So that conversation actually hasn't happened yet. I haven't come out to my family yet.
Well, hello family. You know now.
Right.
You know now. Because she's now telling you about this. She's giving you a link to the podcast, right? So she doesn't really want to tell you face to face. So she'd rather us tell you. So it's my fault. I'm sorry, family.
Oh no. I absolutely think that conversation needs to happen. I'm not entirely sure how to have that conversation. I think I've heard that my brother say he has felt limited with his diagnosis because I think when they didn't understand it, they just kind of said, oh, that's the ADHD, and instead of pushing him, they said, oh, that's the ADHD. And that can also be a hindrance, to put him into this box of, oh, he's brilliant. He's a brilliant artist. He's a brilliant musician. And not if he wanted to go into a business venture, to not have support of somebody being like, oh yeah, he could absolutely be a CEO. They just be like, well, stick to your lane, to not get support for other things outside of that.
Like if he wanted to be a mathematician, he can't do that because whatever, but because he was diagnosed, and you're totally right. I've spoken to many people where when you get a diagnosis, you're then put in a box, and it's not only the situation, the person that diagnosed you put it in a box, but you put yourself in a box, and that could be an issue. Hence, where you are today could actually be a good thing because you wasn't put in a particular box, but maybe not, who knows. But it's an interesting conversation. It's a
conversation that needs to be had.
I think it's different. I think it happens, things happen differently for different folks,
I would love
things
to
can happen from one.
I would love to be able to say, okay, now that I understand this better, I understand this, the only reason how my life has ended up, like, we can help each other. So we can be the yin and yang, like, you know, and I want him to feel empowered. Like, now that I understand these challenges, now that I understand like what that looks like and how that shows up in day to day, like I hear him saying he feels limited, but I also believe that he is like capable beyond measure, and like he needs support in very specific ways. And while I also need support in very specific ways, I think we can still help each other. So I think that might be what the conversation is. Like, hey, now that I understand this a little bit better, maybe we can help each other.
Yeah, maybe it's a situation you can't call him weirdo anymore.
Well, I mean, he's still a sibling. Hello. Still a sibling. He's still gotta.
I get you. No, they've got to be bullied now. Then they've got to be put in their place,
gotta
right?
Keep them in line. Gotta keep them in line.
Yeah. You got it. And I can imagine you, sis, always kept him in line. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I can imagine. There's no two ways about it. Well, listen. Well, it seems like you got in a. I mean, life isn't perfect. We all have our ups and downs. But it seems like you're in a better place today. You know, you've gone through this road of yours, and I try to talk about the person's story, and sometimes it gets deep what I talk about. And the reason being is, you know, I wanted to do the podcast to help people that are neurodivergent, and they think I can't do this. I can't. It's a really bad day. I can't. And as I always say, listeners, you know. Catherine, she couldn't on certain days. It was almost impossible for other days. You know, we all go through it. And we will always keep on going through it. It doesn't stop. So it just means to be consistent. It is possible. You know, me, myself, I have a memory problem. You know, I have a memory problem and I have problems with speech. A lot of people don't know that because I speak very well. Only by being consistent and working on myself. With a few things, am I able to speak so well? And I come across like I'm confident, and trust me, I'm not. But, you know, I have my bad days, I have my good days, and just like Catherine, and she does the same thing. So, you know, just hold in there. You know, Catherine shows that it can be done. She's got her own business, but she knows where her strengths lie. Her strengths lie. She knows she leaves things at the last moment, but she works best under those conditions. So, Kathleen, just put me in the right place if I'm going in the wrong direction. But you have accepted that's how you are, and you just work those last-minute situations, and you put out in a positive note for your business, and it works because you work best under those conditions. Is that correct?
Yes, I want to be really clear here. I absolutely acknowledge that this is. I'm going to call it maybe a vulnerability, like it's a risk for a small business owner to be someone who procrastinates because things go wrong a lot. And some of those things are beyond my control. So it would be better to kind of get things done in a, you know, timely manner. And for running a business, you can control costs a lot better when things are predictable. So the way that I kind of overcome that individually and also kind of deal with it and the way that it shows up in my business is I surround myself by people who are not procrastinators. And so sometimes I will impose external deadlines. I have a team, so it's not just me. Like, I started my business as a solopreneur, but since 2022, I've had a team. So I have a team of people that are constantly pushing me, and they know me. They know that I'm a procrastinator, and sometimes they will give me that little bit of leeway. But when they set boundaries for client projects, they are setting boundaries because they know that I need boundaries, but also boundaries that help us to keep project costs under control, help us to deliver projects on time and up to client specifications. So without that support of people who kind of understand where I'm coming from and who also can kind of adapt the business model to that, I don't think it would work at all. I don't think it would work.
Okay, that sounds beautiful. Okay, let's talk about that now. Support systems. How important is it to have support systems? Now, I'm not just talking about your colleagues, but I'm talking about support systems, even when it comes to family, friends, etc. How important is that to have the support system and give me a few examples showing that importance.
Sure. So my support system is full of people who both understand what it means to be neurodivergent and who don't understand what it means to be neurodivergent. So I think my parents understand what it means to be neurodivergent, like in the context of my brother. And I think that they understand, they're like, oh, they're twins and they're similar in these certain ways, but only the neurodivergence only shows up in the certain ways that they're familiar with for him. But they're still supportive of me. I think them being supportive of him and where he is has allowed them to be supportive of me in the things that they don't know that are associated with neurodivergency. So they're just they're supportive anyway. So they're just like, okay, like, all right, that is different than, that is a value that's different than our value, but it's not bad. I think them dealing with like my brother and his diagnosis has helped them kind of accept things that are different. So like maybe not everybody is neat and uses military corners to tuck in their bed and make up their bed every day, you know? Maybe not everyone pays bills and fills out forms immediately when they get them. Maybe some people do wait till the last minute. So like those types of things. So they are supportive without understanding kind of what comes with neurodivergency. Like they are supportive without understanding that those things that they think are a little bit weird are associated with neurodivergency. I also have people on my team who are supportive and they understand like, okay, the ADHD, you know, like that means you are a procrastinator. like, so we can adjust for that because I know you are a procrastinator. I know you work best under a little bit of pressure. So having people who understand those things specifically can actually help bring out your strengths because even though procrastination is not bad, I do some of my best work under a little bit of pressure. So, you know, like just finding the balance of we can still get it done in the right timeline, but like also let me apply the pressure that makes this work great. Super helpful. So I think having a combination of people who are supportive, who can be supportive without understanding why or specifically how to be supportive, other than to say, okay, yes, all right, or we're here, we're rooting for you, we're cheering for you, or how can I help? So having those people, as well as the people that say, okay, so I know that in 37 minutes she's going to go crawl under a table, so we're going to go ahead and need to get an Uber. You know, like, you know, both types I think are important. You know, yeah.
Well, okay, let's talk about managing. How do you manage your ADHD? Now, some people use lists and just use basic pen and paper. Other people use technology. And we're in the realm of technology right now, which are helping ADHD plus autistic people, etc., neurodivergence. What do you use, if anything, to manage your issue?
So I am a calendar girly. I literally live by the calendar. So a couple of things with calendars that have just dramatically helped me with my life. So being able to block out time for things to say, okay, you know, saying, hey, whatever Google's assistant name, like, hey, Google's assistant person, remind me to pay that bill on Tuesday. Or Gmail has like a snooze feature. So things that I don't want to deal with right now will come back up to my email, you know, the top of my email a little bit later. So living by the calendar. I also have the calendar plugin Calendly, which allows me to block off time from my in my schedule so that my meetings are spaced out. So they're never back to back because I tell Calendly I need at least 30 minutes between meetings. So when people are self-scheduling, they can't schedule me back to back. There's at least 30 minutes between virtual meetings and an hour and a half between in-person meetings because peopling, you know, or I only want one in-person meeting per day, or I only want one coffee chat kind of call per day. So that really helps me not even really think about where I'm supposed to be or what I'm supposed to be doing because the calendar is pretty much automated. Oh man, there was one other thing I wanted to say and then I just forgot it. It's gone.
That's all right. We'll come back to it. I mean, we can talk about the calendar thing. That's really interesting. A lot of people do put spaces in between, especially when they're neurodivergent, because they need the space to recuperate. Mm-hmm. Some people just need space to regenerate their energy, or literally get their notes into gear. I'm the opposite, because as I spoke to you and said before the podcast started, I'm a person, I have to do things in real time, solve problems in real time, talk in real time, because lists, if I try to remember a list or anything, it's just poof, it's gone. So I tend to have meetings back on back. So as soon as one's closed, I have another one, as soon as another one, and another one, another one. But I can only do that because I have the skill set to be able to look at problems in real time. Listen, I'm a good listener, etc. I couldn't do what you do though, which is, you're very good at reading, accumulating the information very quickly. So it just shows how you can be neurodivergent, but you have to find your unique solution that works for you. So listeners, you hear me a lot on the podcast as if something doesn't resonate when we're giving solutions, it doesn't have to. There are many solutions out there that can help you. And so, but the calendar thing with the space time helps a lot of people just to get their bearings back again. Have you thought about that other thing you forgot about, Kathleen?
I did.
There you go.
So randomly, sometimes the rabbit hole syndrome is real, and you have a thought or an idea, and then you lose a lot of time chasing that thought or idea. So randomly, ChatGPT has dramatically reduced the amount of time that I spend going down rabbit holes. And it's because it helps me to get to the bottom of the rabbit hole quickly. So I'll have a thought or a question like, is there a better way? I remember, I'll give you an example actually. So recently I had a client ask me for a proposal for a new website. And I said, the platforms that we have in our arsenal right now, they're not a really good fit for her. There's got to be something else out there for her. And in the past, this would have been a week of research, a full solid week of research. And so I just go, instead of researching all of these things and having to jump from video to article to article, I literally just popped into ChatGPT, or I guess insert AI chatbot of your choice. And I said, hey, is there a way to accomplish this? And then ChatGPT said, hey, yeah, you can use a headless framework. And I'm like, what is what is that? So we had a whole conversation. So in the conversation, I learned that a headless CMS implementation on top of an e-commerce site would solve the problem that my client had. And I was like, okay, cool. Well, how do I do that? So then it says all of this technical stuff. And I realized that I don't have the technical knowledge to implement this particular option. So I have to put a pin in that. The learned me knows that I have to put a pin in that and come back to it. So I'm like, okay, this is what I need for now. So I hand that off to my development team to see if anybody on my development team has these skills. Can we implement this? But then I come back to it because the conversation is still there in memory, which is amazing. And I say, hey, if I wanted to learn about XYZ thing, if I wanted to learn how to do this, what is a learning plan for that? And then it generated a 6-week learning plan, topic by topic, based on the knowledge that I already have to say it. So it says, you already know HTML, you already know CSS, you probably need to brush on a little bit of JavaScript, and you need to understand what containerization is. And I'm like, okay, cool. So it literally broke out a learning plan for me to learn what that is. Because I'm still going to deep dive into it. I just need a structured deep dive, and then to be able to kind of come back to that, like put a pin in it and come back to it and learn about it in a structured way that doesn't derail me from what I'm currently trying to do. So it both solved the immediate problem that I have, which is I need to get this proposal out to the client. If this is a project that we can do, it needs to go in a proposal so that the client can sign and agree to pay for it, bring in business, so forth and stuff, like drive the business, keep the lights on. But also there's knowledge here that I'm missing. I want to get that knowledge. I need a structured way to get that knowledge. And it gave me a learning plan. So I really like ChatGPT or, AI chatbots as a way to shorten that deep dive time of not knowing something to knowing what I don't know to figuring out how to acquire the knowledge that
No, it's totally major. There's no two ways about it. I mean, as you already know, you can build it with your knowledge base and everything else, and build agents now. So you can have basically having your team, the team you already have, and you can build out all these agents and put them into place, and you can be a solopreneur, to be honest. And I love things like that. So help clients build things like that. But you're totally right. I suffer from, when it comes to writing, whatever. I know what I want to say and etc. But when it comes to putting it down on paper, whatever, you forget it, you know?
Yeah.
But as soon as I use technology, and I've been using technology before the ChatGPT thing, Grammarly, was good, spell checker, etc. I mean, and listeners, my spelling is atrocious, but you wouldn't know it. But don't tell anybody. So I've been using technology from the beginning of time, because I'm a tech guy, and because I suffer with writing, as I said before, and remembering things and etc. But I've always placed technology in replace of my weaknesses. So this is why it's always important to talk about with other neurodivergent and say, okay, so what are you replacing? What are you putting in place to help you with those weaknesses? Because you have those leaders, because we tend to be good leaders, right? Mm-hmm. Because we have issues in a particular way, and it's very hard sometimes to articulate that to other people. We just get on and do it ourselves, and we have to, right? And in the interim, what that does, that makes us great leaders, because we're just going to get on with it. And a great leader has got to get it done. It's as simple as that. Mm-hmm. And so we put ourselves in that position. So yeah, you giving us that example is just classic how it can help for us and anybody else. You don't have to be neurodivergent, but anybody else, it's just amazing. So what other wonderful things you use other than that, if anything else?
I'm trying to think. Platform or technology wise, those are the two big ones. There's another platform that I use. It's called Milanote. It's very similar to maybe like a Notion or an Evernote, but it's not as structured, because sometimes like we need to dump information out. So like it's here, it needs to go there. I don't necessarily want to build. Yeah. I don't want to build a Gantt chart. I just want to put this information out there. And so I really like
So what is it called? Sorry, it's called Milanote.
I call it, Milanote, Milanote. And I like it because it has a lot. You can create a blank canvas and you can put lots of different information in there. So I know this is a neurodivergent issue, like where you just save things and then you never get back to them. So it helps with that, because it has a quick notes feature. So you can drop anything in quick notes. You can drop text, you can drop images, you can drop screenshots, you can drop documents. So if you're just like, I will get to this later, I want to put this later. So it has a quick notes section. So you save it from it, and it's across all your devices. So there's a desktop version, there's a tablet version, and there's a mobile version, and they're updated in real time. So I could save things on my phone and my desktop to the same board at the same time. Super helpful. And then also there's a triage space called Quick Notes. And so you can drop images there like, screenshot, the screenshot, I'm going to save the screenshot and come back to it later. And then it also has like flow chart like features. So if I have, for instance, an essay or something that I'm working on, and the screenshot is some sort of inspiration for the essay, those two types of media fit together on the same board. And I struggle to get that same kind of connectivity with other type of note-taking apps. So I really like that you can kind of mix the media and like draw arrows to here and add comments that says like, insert a image of this pantsuit in this article, or here's some inspiration for a craft project that I'm working on. So I really like that platform for brainstorming and just kind of keeping ideas together in different formats. It makes it super easy for the way that I get inspiration to kind of come together in one place. Super helpful.
Yeah, sounds really interesting. It is. Okay, now let's move on to your business, because obviously with all these, what you've gone through in all your life, with all these strength and going through the 500 companies and all these tools that you use, obviously with the time you've had on your business, how does it help other clients? So we now know you've got these huge amount of skills, and rightly so. What exactly do you do? We already know that you help build websites. but what else can be done? Give us a few scenarios that a person may have a problem and they need your help to fulfill it.
Sure. I think that's where the kind of multi-hyphenate talents come in. So yes, I am skilled at web development, front-end web development specifically. But also because I've been a multi-hyphenate in my career, I'm skilled at digital marketing, and like kind of niche in a niche specific way. So I don't do all the digital marketing. I basically do the marketing associated with websites. And because I'm a multi-hyphenate, my MBA is in business analytics. So I'm also a data nerd, randomly.
Ah, I like you. Data, it's in the numbers, right? Data. You love these charts and these numbers. Oh, I'm the
Yeah,
same.
so when people look at my resume,
Terrible.
my resume doesn't make any sense. Like, it doesn't make any kind of, it's not linear. The jobs are not related, but that means I have a skill set that makes sense for entrepreneurs. And so entrepreneurs, small agency, creatives, like those are overwhelmingly the clients that we work with because they need a breadth of experience and expertise, but also at an affordable cost. So I'm able to provide strategy from a place of marketing, from a place of web development, from a place of analytics, without having to have such a large team. And so my team do support me mainly in implementation, but from a strategy perspective, I think that's my strength. So I have my multi-hyphenate interests mean that I have a breadth and depth of experience and expertise related to business outcomes, specifically for business. And I think our strength, the way that we kind of differentiate ourselves from either a person or a freelancer that does one of those things or a very large agency that does all of those things, but for 10 times the price, is we have the overhead of like 1 to 3 people with the expertise of like 10.
I get that, but it wasn't easy for you to get to that that stage, because obviously it takes time to train people and to get used to people and know what's right and not, and putting the right strategy for the business to make it run it as efficient as possible, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it doesn't happen overnight. No, I get that, and I feel that it takes time to accumulate with people. So. But with that said, I think we'll have to put the line in the sand. As much as I can speak to you and we can speak deep, because I know you're quite a deep person and I'd like to speak, but this is not what the sort of podcast is going to be. So I'm just gonna hold myself back, and I'm just going to say to you, how do people get in touch with you if they need your services?
Sure. So the Walton Birch website is waltonbirch.com. That is WALTONBIRCH.com. That's the website. I think actually that's the handle everywhere, but we're also available on LinkedIn and Facebook and all those other places as well. But that's a good starting spot.
And as always, people, I'll have all the information down below. So to make it easier, you can copy and paste, click on the link, and definitely get in touch if you need her services. You can see she may be a bit nutty, but she'll get the job done.
Absolutely.
Kathleen, yeah, absolutely. There you go. There you go. You're in good hands. Yeah, she will get the job done. Trust me. No, on a serious note, no, seriously. If you do need any help with any tech issues when it comes to websites, analytics, anything like that, get in touch with her. And you can't go wrong in that way. In the meantime, Kathleen, thanks a lot for your help. I really appreciate you giving us your time.
Thank you so much.
That's a pleasure. In the meantime, everyone, until next time, sayonara.